Hi, this is Christy at Crepe Myrtle Journals, and I wanted to show you a flip through of my 13th journal. I started making journals 2 years ago at the beginning of the pandemic, or roundabout there, while living at a children's home in Honduras, and I got a lot of the kids there involved too. Both boys and girls, they really enjoyed making homemade books. This is the 13th journal that I've made, and I wanted to do a flip through. I have a little charm right there on the closure. The person who's receiving the journal has the beginning of her name is M. It has 2 signatures, and I used buttons along the signatures when I sewed them in. It has just a piece of neutral ribbon that came from packaging. Most of my journals I try to use recycled things. This is an old book cover, and I have used art medium with a stencil and then rubbed over it with gold after painting it the teal color, rubbed over it with gold so that the stencil would show up. And before I get rid of it, I want to catalog it. Oh, this is where my hole punches from the putting in a grommet. This is the front. I have a note from the bookmaker, various papers that I found over time and made. I have a number 1 and a number 3 here indicating the 13th journal. Of course, the recipient won't understand that, but for me it's a way to catalog and have fun keeping track of which journal this is and how many I've made. I'm going to make sure you're in view. There we go. Coffee dyed paper, some original drawings, stencils, the number 13 again, stencils, collaging out with little strips, homemade dyed papers, coffee and other types of dye, recycling notepads and papers that were used previously. I dyed some plain paper next to some cardstock that was this color, and the color transferred onto the paper, and I thought it looked really neat. And you can kind of sort of see the edge of the doily that was laying there next to it. That's not very clear, the edge of the doily, but isn't that neat, the way the paper absorbed the cardstock color. It's a little envelope I made a little paper clip with a charm. It's a doily. My own stencils I've made. An envelope flip with some things inside, pocket behind. The other part of that envelope glued here, left open as a pocket. Tags and other papers. Some scrapbook paper. A page about movies, popcorn, movie nights. Maybe a place to write the person's favorite top 10 movies or shows. A little snippet of little papers and cloth and material and textures and paper flowers sewn down. Stencils, an origami square that can be pulled out and used for more writing space. A paper ruffle. More stenciling. This happened when I was dyeing papers. This is a die cut. I used the die cut, but then the image that remained, the negative image, I guess, I put book paper behind it to make a little piece of ephemera. I got that idea from Corey Dahman at, I'm trying to remember the name of her channel. It's like making things with scraps, crafting with scraps. But she has a lot of ideas of how to use die cuts. More stenciling. A little blooming cross where you put 3 or more papers folded over in a square shape, one inside the other, one a little bit smaller than the other, as extra writing space, and under there I wrote hideaways. I got this idea from Pam at the Paper Outpost, but I think she even said that she may have gotten it from someone else. Put little pockets on the side and put an image across the seam. Made this look kind of like a flower has been preserved, but of course it's a paper flower, but I put some old masking tape and a little label there. Used some old wrapping paper. Junk mail flip. Made a pocket on the back and tucked in a picture of a bird so the bird's face would show through the window of the junk mail. Coffee dyed paper, a little wreath in the center line. Another doily, prints, stencils using book pages. A rubber stamp to put on a little piece of paper. This is I think it's like a duct tape that I used as a tab. Here's the other half of that paper that absorbed the cardstock that was this color, and you can really see the doily outline now. Pocket made from a book, library book pocket, glued it down, tucked some interesting things in it, some currency from Egypt. I don't know if they even use any other currency except maybe euros there, not sure. A receipt from a museum in Egypt, like a ticket used to enter something. And behind the pocket, behind the library pocket, I left an open space to make another pocket. Used a piece of a cloth measuring tape, and then just added a few bits of tags and lace. All of these ideas I've gotten from 99% from other YouTubers, but I'm just putting it together. I wanted to show and tell, so I keep track of I want to have a visual memory of my own journal, but I'm not claiming that all these ideas are mine. Like this little bird's nest I got from Pam at the Paper Outpost. She just used leftover strings, curled them up, put a few beads in the middle to make a bird's nest. Some of the ideas are my own, or I've tweaked ideas to make them my own, as many people do. It's a tiny, tiny file folder. I love miniatures, and I love making miniature things to go in journals. A little cluster. A bookmark made out of fabric scraps and a piece of paper in between for some stability. Then sewed around the edges. Old denim. A little stencil of a teacup, and then I left part of it open so that something could be tucked behind it. A rubber stamp I made by hand using cardboard and art foam. Stamps. I found a hole, I think it was supposed to be like a border for maybe bulletin board or something like that, but I just cut off little individual houses or strips of them and made it into a pocket. And this is a piece of paper, coffee dyed. And when I lived in Honduras, I used some leaves from coffee plants and mulberry plants to rub the leaves onto this page. So that's a coffee leaf, mulberry leaf, and I lived on a coffee farm, and it says subtropical rainforest, Central America. So I brought some things with me that I had made there. Here's that doily that was laying against the construction paper of that color. Homemade button, really out of cardboard or paper. I laid a tablecloth against this old file folder and sprayed some color onto it to make a pattern. It's experimenting. This person likes to bake, so this is a page maybe that could be written, ideas could be written down for baking. Part of a paper umbrella I just thought was neat, and it says little things. Little snippet roll. I laid a doily against a piece of cardstock and rubbed my dauber over it, and it picked up the outline and shape and all the little holes on the doily. It was like a plasticky kind of doily, but I really thought that was beautiful. Old advertisements. This person likes the Arkansas Razorbacks. More of that beautiful stain from the construction paper or cardstock. This little thing comes out of these two corners. It looks like a castle, like a fairy tale castle. An envelope pouch made from an old paper sack, and then turned into a little pouch that could hold other goodies. And use this document style closure. This was an idea from Corey Dahman. Some tags and my own rubber stamp I made, trying to imitate the Fachwerk look of German buildings. And this is just a piece of paper that it's like a flower in a book or magazine, and I laid a stencil against it to cut out this jar shape. So I created a jar-shaped stencil and then used it to cut out open spaces in magazines and stuff that had things that looked like they could be inside of a jar to try to make that illusion of something inside the jar. I'm going to stick out these little parts of my tag. Made a belly band from a bookmark. Some more of that paper that got stained. A little flip for someone to write underneath it. The center of my signature, I put a teeny tiny crochet circle on the strings that were used to sew the signatures in. This is a little matchbook I made. This is my 13th journal, so I put 13 in here a few times. This is also a flip out with an envelope full of goodies, papers, a few pages that have been coffee dyed as a little notebook. Part of it's left open, so a tag could be slipped in here. Music paper, stained paper, butterflies from a field guide, little top tuck. An origami dress, the idea from G. Kerr, Happiness in Crafting. You could either use it as a side tuck. She turns them tiny, tiny little dresses into paper clips that clip on the top of your paper. She has a lot of ideas. Pocket. Some more purple paper. I laid some kind of like polyester lace against the paper and then squirted it with a color to make a design. This is a new stencil I got on eBay, I think, of wisteria. Real flowers that have been laid in here. Dried flowers that I've pressed in a dry flower press. A pocket, old playing card. Recipe card, this person likes to cook. Whatever I find at flea markets and thrift stores, paper related, I snatch up if it's a good price. I used little tiny tags that were already used for a flea market, and I stained the back side of them and turned them into tabs. Flips, tucks where envelope flaps are. Made a little notepad. I found some beautiful paper at a garage sale that was very textured and had lots of threads in it. It was a pack of small paper. And I turned it into a little flip notepad for the person to use, and it says a little note. I made a coffee to go journal card. This person likes coffee. In front of the little, like, what you'd use to keep your hand from getting burnt from the hot coffee, that little cup holder thing. I made it into a little pocket so you could put something behind it. These are some of the stamps I've made by hand with cardboard and art foam. Just made it into a journaling card. This is a label from a coffee brand. Turned it into a journaling card. Put a definition of what coffee is on the front of that. This person's a swimmer, so I used an old vintage bathing suit stamp. This patch would allow you to get into the swimming pool where this business was. I think it was in San Antonio, Texas. Rest of that doily. And this is the end. The end is a little Velcro closure envelope that I've turned into a flip. I used a composition book, teeny tiny one, to make a journaling card. Put a little flip of paper in there and some tags behind it, hidden, and then close it with Velcro. This is another Corey Dahman idea using die cuts. Then put a couple of journaling cards in the back behind it. This is one of my own rubber stamps I made using cardboard and art foam, kind of like a aster or something, kind of flower. There you go. That is journal number 13. Thanks for watching my show and tell.